My name's Ethan Rivera. I'm 29. And on Easter Sunday, while carving a turkey for 35 relatives, my father looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't have a role here. You just ruin it." The knife almost slipped from my hand. The dining room, moments ago buzzing with laughter, went still except for my little nephew asking for more cranberry sauce. Everyone stared, but no one spoke. I was standing there with a tray of food like a hired caterer. Not a son. For as long as I can remember, my family has loved titles. My siblings all got theirs instantly when Dad announced we'd build a legacy together through a new family business. Emily, the oldest, was crown marketing director. Daniel, the second born, became operations manager. Clara, the youngest but sharp with numbers, got finance lead. Even my 9-year-old cousin Sophie walked away with social media coordinator. They clapped for her like she'd won an award. And me. My mom forced a smile and chimed in quickly. Someone needs to stay home and handle logistics. You're so good at organizing. I knew what that really meant. Free labor. No equity. No salary. Just the role of family servant again. Growing up, I thought it was normal. Emily, the golden child, could wreck anything and somehow be praised. When she failed 3 college classes, Mom said, "She's exploring her path. Don't be so judgmental." Meanwhile, when I brought home a 8 gigapascals, Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. There's a pattern that runs like a scar through my life. Incident 1. 6 years ago, Dad's last startup collapsed. He sat me down and said, "Family helps family. You'll understand one day." I co-signed his $47,000 loan, draining my savings. I'm still paying it off. But at family gatherings, he brags about building from scratch. No one remembers the one who footed the bill. Incident 2, Emily's car broke down. She needs stability. "Ethan, she's so fragile," Mom said. I covered her $389 monthly payments for 2 years. Emily later posted selfies from vacations in Greece and Mexico, thanking hard work and destiny. Not a word about me. Incident 3, Daniel begged me for $12,000 to join a real estate syndicate. He swore it was a sure win. 3 months later, he shrugged. Market shifted. Don't blame me. He bought a new drone that same week. And Clara, I spent an entire year babysitting her kids every weekend so she could recharge at yoga retreats. Once I asked her for gas money, she laughed. "Come on, Ethan. Family doesn't nickel and dime every time." I smiled politely. I told myself it didn't matter. I wanted their love more than reimbursement. I wanted to belong. But this Easter, I thought things would change. Dad promised, "We're building something big. Everyone will share." For weeks, I believed him. I told myself, finally, I'll be seen not just as a helper, but as a partner. So when he stripped me of a title in front of 35 relatives, my chest burned. Aunt Karen, Dad's sister, avoided eye contact. Uncle Paul suddenly studied his mashed potatoes like they held secrets. Even Grandma Rose, who rarely stopped chewing, froze with her fork, mid-air. Dad kept talking, oblivious to the silence. "We need someone dependable for scheduling. Vendors. Maybe bookkeeping. No official title needed. Equity just complicates things." Daniel chuckled. "Yeah. Can't split the pie too many ways." Emily added with that sharp smile. "Besides, Ethan's never shown interest in entrepreneurship. This requires real skills." That word real? It sliced deeper than the knife in my hand. I should have seen it coming. The signs were always there. But hope is a stubborn thing. I thought maybe this Easter would be the moment Dad finally recognized me. Instead, his words echoed in my head, "You just ruin it." What they didn't know was that I'd been building something of my own. Nights. Weekends. 18 months of grinding in silence. Certification courses I paid for myself. A portfolio no one in this house even bothered to ask about. And while they celebrated titles that cost me nothing but dignity, I had already secured 3 corporate contracts, totaling $240. 000 for year 1. My consulting firm was ready to launch in less than a week. But in that moment, surrounded by the clink of silverware and forced smiles, I realized the truth. They didn't want me as a partner. They wanted me as their mule. I smiled. The same tired smile I'd been wearing for 6 years. Only this time, it carried something different: resolve. Because Easter Sunday wasn't just a holiday, it was the day the illusion cracked. And what came next? That would change everything. The calls started before I reached the end of the block. Unknown numbers. Family ringtones. Group chat pings. I let them stack like plates in the sink. At home, I set my keys down. The apartment felt steady. My couch, my coffee mug with a chip on the rim, a plant I kept alive out of spite. I breathed. Then I opened my phone. 53 missed calls. 87 texts. A fresh family group chat had appeared. Legacy team. I scrolled. Dad, let's cool off. Emotions were high. Emily, we still need him doing logistics. No payroll. Daniel, we'll make it sound like experience. Clara, and access to his calendar, he's got those corporate contacts. Mom, I'll talk to him. He'll come around. He always does. Always. I should have known. Another ping. A private message from my cousin Sophie. Don't tell anyone I sent this. A screenshot followed another thread. Executive room. I wasn't in it. Dad register Rivera Process Group before Ethan's Tuesday launch. Emily reserve domain plus socials. Make it look like we're the original. Daniel, call my buddy at Metatran Pharma. Pitch them first. If we get them, Ethan has to join us. I stared at the screen. Not an accident. Not heat of the moment. A plan. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a thin black notebook. The one with dates, receipts, and half-scribbled quotes I never wanted to need. Tonight, I needed all of it. First, I wrote a simple line. They think I'll fold. Then I turned that line into steps. Step 1, lock down the business. I logged into my state portal and checked my LLC, filed and active as Rivera Systems Consulting. LLC. Date stamped. Fees paid. I secured 3 variations of the name and grabbed the .com. Allo Co. And IO domains I'd been eyeing. 2-factor on everything. New passphrases. New recovery emails. Step 2, protect the clients. I emailed my anchor client, Meriton Biotech. Subject, quick Tuesday launch update. Then North Bay Tech and Hollis and Crane Pharma. Short. Clear. Time-stamped. I attached our signed scopes and NDAs. I added a one-liner. You may receive confusing outreach. Please route any family-owned pitches to legal. Meriton replied in 3 minutes. We're with you. Keep us posted. Step 3. Paper shield. I booked a rush consult with an attorney for Monday 9/0 A.M. IP. Contracts. Harassment. I uploaded everything: the family chats, the LLC docs, the scopes. I added my notebook scans, dates, amounts, and quotes. 47 million. 000 co-signed loan for Dad. $389 divided by month for 24 months of Emily's car. Char million. 000 for Daniel's syndicate. 52 weekends of childcare for Clara. Each had a note, a text, a voice memo, a pattern printed in black and white. Step 4, money firewall. I called the bank and removed my name from any shared alerts with my parents. I froze the old emergency credit line I'd opened for Dad. I listed 3 recurring charges. I'd been too tired to fight Dad's temporary software license. $129 divided by month. 19 months running. Emily's trial marketing platform. $79 divided by month. 11 months. and a storage unit in Daniel's name, $164 divided by month. 7 months. I terminated all 3. The quiet after that felt like a new room I hadn't walked into before. Light. Unused. Mine. Around midnight. My doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Aunt Karen stood there alone, clutching a pie tin with foil sagging in the middle. I opened the door but left the chain on. It's late. I know, she said softly. I saw how they spoke to you. It was wrong. Her voice trembled. Your grandmother's clock ticked so loud when your father said those words. I've never heard that house so quiet. I almost laughed. The clock again. It was the only honest witness at that table. Aunt Karen held up a flash drive. Your uncle backs up the family emails. He shouldn't, but he does. This is the thread where they made the decision. Weeks ago, she swallowed. They planned to give you house coordination the whole time. No title. No pay. I slid the chain and let her in. We sat at my table under a warm bulb and opened the files. Dates. Subject lines. The phrase "he'll do it for love" repeated by different people like a refrain in a bad song. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. They think kindness means you'll never draw a line. Not anymore, I said. She touched my hand. Oh, good. Make it clean. Make it bright. On her way out, she added, almost apologetics. There were 5 mustard jars on the buffet tonight. He blinked. It says everything, she said. So much display. Not much substance. The door clicked shut behind her, and her line lingered in the hall like a small, necessary truth. Sunday bled into Monday. I barely slept. At 9:00 a.m., I sat across from Addie Morgan Hale, who read like a scanner. Calm. Exact. Unimpressed by drama. Okay, she said, tapping the family chat screenshots. We have attempted interference, business defamation risk, and name confusion. We'll file a cease and desist today. We'll also file a service mark for your brand and send notice to your 3 clients. Will that stop them? I asked. It will warn them, she said. The rest is boundaries. She coached me through a script, short sentences. No, apologies. Written proof. You will not debate your worth, she said. You will simply state the terms. When I left her office, I had a folder labeled Protect Ethan. It felt like armor. I drove straight to Marathon Biotech. Met with Project Ops in a glass room that smelled faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. We heard from an Emily Rivera, the director said. Lifting a brow, she suggested you'd be transitioning under the family umbrella. Will? I placed the signed scope on the table. I will not, I said. Silence. Then a nod. Understood. We prefer accountability in one pair of hands anyway. North Bay Tech and Hollis & Crane said the same. I walked out into cool air with my shoulders lower and the ground steady. At 4:12 p.m. Mom called from a block number. I let it go to voicemail. At 4:15. Dad texted family meeting. Tonight, 7 p.m. You owe us that. At 4:16. Emily, you're being dramatic. We can still make you useful. At 4:17. Daniel, a thumbs up emoji and a money bag. He thinks he's subtle. I drafted my reply. Kept it clinical. The attorney's rhythm. I will not attend a meeting tonight. Any business discussion must be in writing. Do not contact my clients. Do not use my name, my company name, or any confusingly similar name. A formal notice will follow from counsel. I hit send. Then I turned my phone face down and let the room breathe. At 6:03 p.m., a car door slammed outside my building. Then another. I checked the window. Dad? Mom. Emily in heels too high for the cracked sidewalk. Daniel in a hoodie, hands jammed in his pockets. Clara trudging behind. Yafset. They were not here to listen. I put my folder on the coffee table. I placed my phone beside it. Voice memo app open. I set a second phone, my old one, on the bookshelf. Camera pointed at the couch. A small red light winked to life. The knock came hard, like a verdict. Ethan. Dad called through the door. Too friendly. Open up. We're family. I took one slow breath. I opened the door and stepped aside without smiling. Mom walked in first, perfume trailing behind her. She looked around my place like it was a hotel she hadn't booked. Emily flicked a glance at my plants. Cute, she said. It sounded like cheap. Daniel took the chair with the best angle to the room and spread out like he paid rent here. Clara hovered near the door. Dad didn't sit. He stood over the coffee table and tapped the folder. What's this? Boundaries, I said. He laughed. You won't need those once we align. We're offering you a spot, scheduling, vendors. You'll be essential. No equity, Emily added brightly, as if she was handing me a balloon. But lots of exposure. Exposure, I repeated. To sunlight or to liability. Daniel snorted. Why are you like this? Mom clasped her hands. Sweetheart, you don't have the temperament for leadership. This is better. We'll take care of the big pieces. You can do what you're good at. Organizing. There it was again. Organizing. The box they kept shoving me back into. I slid the cease and desist across the table. You will not contact my clients. You will not present yourselves as my company. You will not register a confusingly similar name. If you do, we escalate. Dad's smile thinned. You wouldn't. I would, I said, and I will. Emily crossed her arms. You think you're the only one with connections. I think I'm the only one here who's earned them. The room tightened like a belt. Daniel leaned forward. You're really going to burn the family for a few contracts. I met his eyes. For respect? For peace? Dad's voice dropped. We made you. Don't forget that. I felt something inside me go very still. No, I said. You used me. There's a difference. He reached for the folder. I placed my hand on it. He lifted his head slowly. Surprised I didn't yield. Take your hand off, he said. No, I said. For a heartbeat. No one spoke. Outside. A siren wailed and faded. Inside. My old phone's red light kept blinking. Small and patient. Dad straightened. Last chance. Ethan, work with us. Or we work around you. I looked at my mother. Is that what you want? She hesitated. The truth flickered in her eyes. Then she pushed it down. Family needs unity, she said. Stop being difficult. I nodded once. Okay. I tapped my phone. The voice memo timer glowed. I slid a printed transcript of their group chat into the center of the table. Dad's words. Emily's plan. Daniel's greed. Clara's silence. Mom's promise. He always comes around. They all stared at the page. Where did you Emily started? Proof, I said. And there's more. Dad's jaw clenched. You're making enemies. No, I said quietly. I'm making a boundary. The room held its breath. Then I said the line I'd practiced with the attorney. Simple and final. This conversation is now over. Please leave. Dad didn't move. Emily didn't blink. Daniel's smile died. Mom reached for me with the same hand that used to pat my head after I'd solved their crises. Sweetheart. I stepped back. Outside. Another car door slammed. Footsteps in the hall. Voices. Aunt Karen's voice. Uncle Paul's. And was that Grandma Rose? My front door was still open. They must have followed, or maybe they were done pretending. Two. From the hallway came the soft scrape of chairs being carried. My living room was about to become a courtroom. I picked up the folder and set it on my lap. Palms flat. Then I looked at my father and said, very clearly. We'll do this right. And as the rest of my family filed in, Fatsa Spala, whispers flying, I clicked the second phone on the shelf. That's when I hit record. The scrape of chair legs on my hardwood floor felt louder than any thunder. Aunt Karen entered first. Her lips pressed in a line so tight it looked painful. Uncle Paul followed, carrying 2 folding chairs from my hallway closet like he'd rehearsed this moment. And then slowly, carefully, Grandma Rose shuffled in, cane tapping against the floor. She didn't look at anyone, just found a spot by the window and sat. Her silence was heavier than all the accusations flying around. My siblings shifted uncomfortably. Emily's confident smirk cracked. Daniel pulled his hoodie strings tighter. Clara overed, eyes darting between me and Grandma, like a child caught between parents in a divorce. Dad's voice boomed to cover the unease. What is this circus? We came to talk sense into Ethan, not hold a town meeting. Grandma lifted her cane and set it down hard. Thud. Sit. That single word froze him. My father, the man who could sell frost to Alaska, actually sat down like he was back in grade school. I breathed slowly, letting the silence grow teeth. For once, I wasn't filling it with apologies. Aunt Karen spoke first. We saw the messages. We saw how you planned to edge Ethan out. This isn't family. It's theft. Emily snapped. You don't understand business. No. Karen cut her off. I understand exploitation. You call it logistics. I call it free labor. 6 years of it. She turned to me, her eyes soft. He deserves better. Uncle Paul cleared his throat. We've all watched it. The loans, the babysitting, the handouts you called investments. We stayed quiet because, well, family politics. But this has gone too far. Daniel rolled his eyes. So now Ethan's the victim saint. He gave money willingly. Willingly, I said, finally speaking. My voice was calm, almost too calm. Do you remember your exact words? Danielle, you said, trust me, you'll get it back, double. This is your shot to finally be part of something. I wrote the date, March 14th, 3 years ago. You disappeared for weeks after I wired the money. Daniel's face flushed. You keep notes like a psycho. Yes, I said, because otherwise, you'd convince me it never happened. Grandma's gaze sharpened. Ethan, tell us. So I did. I laid it out in cold facts. The $47,000 loan for Dad's failed company, still draining my account each month. The 24 months of car payments for Emily's SUV while she posted vacation photos. The $12,000. Daniel's syndicate swallowed whole. The 52 weekends I gave Clara, unpaid childcare, while she found herself in yoga retreats. Each story I told, I paired with a detail, the sound of Dad's voice cracking when he begged, Emily's midnight sobs when the repo man called, Clara's airy texts, namaste. Love you as I rocked her crying. Toddler, memorable, specific, undeniable. By the time I finished, no one met my eyes. Mom finally spoke. Voice trembling, but still laced with that careful guilt she'd perfected over the years. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought you're dependable. You never complain. You're safe. Safe, I repeated. Not respected. Not valued. Just convenient. She blinked fast, like she could wash the truth out of her own eyes. Emily leaned forward, trying to recover ground. Ethan, think rationally. You can't run a consulting firm alone. You'll burn out. We're your blood. Better to join forces. I looked straight at her. You mean better for you. My contracts would bankroll your titles. Her jaw clenched. The room pulsed with tension. Then Grandma spoke again, her voice low, but carrying weight. Ethan, what do you want? It caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me that, not once. Not in this family. I took a breath. I want recognition. Not scraps. Not chores disguised as compliments. I want the same chance you hand them without question. I glanced at Emily. Daniel. Glada. But mostly, I want freedom from being your backup plan. Dad's chair creaked as he leaned back. So, what you cut us off, pretend we don't exist, that's your solution. No, I said slowly. My solution is boundaries. You can't use my name, my work, or my money again. You want success. Build it without me. Daniel scoffed. That's selfish. Selfish. I laughed once. Sharp. I've been financing your lifestyles for 6 years. If that's selfish, maybe I should have been selfish a lot sooner. The air in the room shifted then. Not victory, something sharper. Because instead of breaking down, I was standing taller, and they didn't know what to do with that. Aunt Karen leaned forward, eyes fierce. You all should be ashamed. Ethan's the only one who's earned his place at that table. Dad's face went red. Enough. This isn't a courtroom. We don't need witnesses. But in my pocket, my phone kept recording. Every word, every threat, every confession. I looked at my father. Steady. You're right. It's not a courtroom. Then I glanced at my grandmother. Not yet. Her eyes gleamed. And for the first time, she smiled. That night, when they finally stormed out of my apartment, the silence they left behind wasn't heavy. It was clean, but I knew this wasn't the end. People like my family don't back down. They double down. And the next move they made would test everything I'd just built. The silence after they left was almost soothing. My apartment, for once, wasn't weighed down with their voices, their demands, their guilt. I sat at the table, folder still open, the red light on my old phone blinking in the corner. But peace in my family never lasts. By dawn, they had already moved. At 6:07 a.m., an email hit my inbox. The subject line read, Urgent, brand confusion. It was from a client contact at Hollis & Crane Pharma. Ethan, just received a pitch from Rivera Process Group. They claimed you're merging with them. They even attached a logo. Looks very similar to yours. Need clarity. Attached was a PDF mock-up. My stomach dropped. They had copied my branding, same color palette, same geometric motif. Even the same tagline I drafted months ago, turning chaos into clarity. Except this time, Emily's name was stamped as marketing director at the bottom. I forwarded it to Attorney Hale with one line. They moved fast. Her reply came back minutes later. That logo is infringement. We'll escalate. Sit tight. Don't respond directly. Let me handle clients. Easier said than done. Because by 8:00 a.m., 2 more clients had emailed, confused by duplicate LinkedIn pages and near-identical websites. Daniel had apparently leaned on his tech buddy to clone everything I built. They weren't just trying to take my business. They were trying to erase me. At 9:15. My phone rang. Not family this time, Grandma Rose. Her voice was steady. They're at it again. Aren't they? Yes, I said. They're trying to steal everything. I warned them last night. She sighed. But your father only hears himself. Ethan, don't fight fire with fire. Fight it with proof. Paper never burns. That line stuck. Paper never burns. By noon, Attorney Hale had filed for an injunction. Cease and desist letters went out to every domain host, every registrar, every platform. But Hale warned me, they'll stall. They'll twist. Expect pushback. She was right. At 2:00 p.m., I got a text from Emily. Why are you making this ugly? Your family. Drop the lawyer. Come back. We'll cut you in if you stop now. 5 minutes later, Daniel followed with his version. Lawyers cost money. Clients hate drama. You'll scare them off. Just sign with us. It's safer. And then Mom, Ethan, please, don't destroy everything your father built. You don't want to regret this. Regret. That word tasted bitter. I typed back one sentence to all three of them. You don't get to rewrite history anymore. The next hit was nastier. At 4:22 p.m. My bank called. Mr. Rivera. We've had multiple attempts to access your accounts today. Someone tried using old PIN numbers and your father's secondary contact from years ago. We've frozen everything until you come in with ID. They were cutting off my lifeline. I sat there, hands clenched, thinking of every sacrifice, the $47,000 loan, the years of payments, the babysitting, the gas money, the constant drain. Now they wanted me bankrupt before I even launched. But instead of panic, I felt a strange calm. They were proving my point for me. Every move they made was more evidence of who they really were. That evening, I visited Grandma Rose. Her small bungalow smelled of cinnamon and old books. She handed me a manila envelope before I even sat down. "What's this?" "Copies," she said. "Old letters. Checks. Proof you covered things. I've been saving them. I knew one day you'd need them." Inside were photocopies of canceled checks, some dating back a decade. My handwriting in the memo lines: Dad's business loan, Emily's car, Daniel's deal. My chest tightened. "Why didn't you say anything before?" She looked down at her frail hands. "Because every time I spoke up, your father silenced me. But last night, I saw you stand tall. I won't stay silent again." Her cane tapped against the floor. "Use this wisely. Don't humiliate them. Just expose them." I drove home with the envelope on the passenger seat, headlights carving through the dark. My phone buzzed non-stop texts. Voicemails. Threats. Bargaining. When I pulled into my driveway, one message froze me cold. It was from an unknown number. The photo showed my apartment door, my welcome mat visible under dim hallway light. Caption: "Talk to us before Tuesday, or things get messy." I stood in my kitchen, envelope in hand, staring at that picture. My family had crossed a line. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was intimidation. I set the envelope down carefully. Then I walked to the bookshelf, pulled the old phone with the blinking red light, and checked the recordings. The tribunal, the threats, the admissions, they were all there, clear as glass. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel cornered. I felt armed. Because Tuesday wasn't just launch day, it was judgment day. And this time, I would be the one writing the story. Tuesday began with rain. Thin, slanting lines on my window, like someone was underlining the date. I brewed coffee, packed my folder, checked my phones. Then I put on the same watch my grandmother gave me at graduation. A reminder time can be used, or it can be taken, at 8:30 a.m. I walked into Morgan Hale's office. Neutral carpet. A plant that didn't know about our chaos. She handed me a stapled packet. "Emergency hearing at 11. She said, "We're asking for a temporary restraining order. Takedown of the clone sites. And a no-contact clause with your clients." "Will it hold?" "It will, if we make it simple." She said, "Facts, dates, signatures, no speeches." I nodded. Simple, clean, bright. The way Aunt Karen had framed it. The way Grandma had urged. At 10, we set up in a small courtroom. It wasn't dramatic, no high ceilings, no polished mahogany, just a judge behind a desk and a humming air vent. My family sat on the other side, Dad in his serious suit. Mom ironed into silence. Emily with a neat folder and a new blowout. Daniel in a too-tight tie, tugging at his collar. Clara pressed small between them. Aunt Karen and Uncle Paul were behind me. Grandma Rose sat in the second row, cane across her knees like a measured line. The judge glanced at our filings. "We'll keep this brief." "Counsel." Hale stood, calm, Exact. Your Honor, this is a simple matter. My client, Ethan Rivera, formed Rivera Systems Consulting, LLC on March 4th. He secured the mark and signed contracts with 3 corporations, Marathon Biotech, North Bay Tech, and Hollis and Crane Pharma. Over the weekend, his family created Rivera Process Group, copied his branding, contacted his clients, claiming a merger, and attempted to access his bank accounts using obsolete credentials. We seek a TRO, immediate takedown of infringing material, and an order prohibiting interference. Dad rose. Voice smooth. We're a family. This is a misunderstanding. We intended to include Ethan. He's overreacting with lawyers. Hale didn't look at him. Exhibit A, she said, handing the bailiff a printed thread. Their executive room chat. Quote, register Rivera Process Group before Ethan's Tuesday launch. Reserve domain plus socials. Make it look like we're the original. Call Metatron Pharma first if we get them. He has to join. Timestamp 2 days before Easter. The judge skimmed. His eyebrow lifted. Ms. Rivera. Mr. Rivera. These are your messages. Emily's smile faltered. That's context-free. Answer. The judge said. She swallowed. Yes. Exhibit B. Hale continued. Side-by-side logos. Same hex code palette. Same geometric motif. Samey tagline, turning K's into clarity. There's registered Sunday at 6:42 p.m. After our mark filing and after his websites went live in private staging, Daniel leaned forward. Everyone uses blue. Everyone uses triangles. Holly didn't blink. Exhibit C, the email to Hollis and Crane from Rivera Process Group claiming Ethan was merging under the family umbrella. Sent by Emily Rivera. ND bank security log showing repeated access attempts using an outdated emergency contact. His father. The judge looked up. Mr. Rivera. Dad's jaw tightened. He added me years ago. I believed I still had access. You believed incorrectly, the judge said. Hale tapped the next page. Finally, Exhibit E, a photo message of my client's apartment door with the caption, talk to us before Tuesday, or things get messy. Phone number links to a prepaid device purchased with Daniel Rivera's debit card. We have the receipt? Daniel's face drained. It was a joke. The judge set the packet down slowly. It is not funny. Silence pulled tight across the room. Then came my part. Not a speech. Just edges and dates. I co-signed $47. 000 for my father's failed company. I said. I paid $389 a month for 24 months on Emily's car. I wired Swift $000 to Daniel's syndicate that never existed. I watched Clara's kids 52 weekends while she recharged. I did it because I believed one day I'd be treated like family, not like a tool. My voice didn't shake. I let the numbers stand by themselves. Like mile markers on a road. I finally recognized. Hale nodded once. Your Honor, the law isn't punishing family dynamics. It's protecting a business owner from interference. We're asking for a narrow order. Dad started to speak. The judge raised a hand. You had your turn. He turned to me instead. Mr. Rivera, do you want reconciliation? Or do you want revenge? The question hit like cold water. I could feel my family watching, ready to call me cruel, ready to use my answer against me. I want peace, I said, and the only way to get peace with them is to draw a line they can't step over. Grandma's cane tapped once on the floor. Approving. Final. The judge wrote for a full minute. The scratch of his pen was the loudest sound in the room. Then he spoke. Temporary restraining order granted. The defendants will cease using any name, mark, logo, or domain confusingly similar to Rivera Systems Consulting. They will not contact the plaintiff's clients in any capacity. They will not attempt to access his accounts. The clone sites and LinkedIn pages will be removed within 24 hours. Violations will trigger sanctions. He signed, slid the papers to the clerk, and added, Mr. Rivera, he glanced at my father family does not mean ownership. Then to me, Mr. Ethan Rivera. Don't weaponize this. Use it to move forward. Gavel. Over. My lungs loosened. The room exhaled with me. Emily stood so fast her chair screeched. This is ridiculous. Hale handed her a copy of the order. It's the law. Daniel muttered. You just nuked your own blood. And shouldered past me. I let him go. The line was real now. Paper. Signed. Cold and clean. Outside the courtroom, Hollis and Crane's legal counsel called Hale to confirm receipt. Meriton Biotech emailed me a 3-word reply to my update. We stay. Deliver. North Bay Tech added a purchase order. Bigger scope. More weeks. They liked the clarity. On the courthouse steps, Mom approached me, eyes bright with tears that didn't quite fall. Sweetheart, you didn't have to do this in public. You did, I said softly. I just answered. She flinched. For a second, I saw the truth try to surface in her face. Then it sank back down. Come for dinner, she said, reaching. We can talk? I stepped back. Not now. Dad moved in, voice low and tight. You think a judge fixes what you broke? I looked at him and saw the pattern. Start to finish. Not just the last week, but every year before it. The holidays where I cooked and paid and smiled. The birthdays where the golden child blew out the candles I'd bought. The whispers. The jokes at my expense. The way organizing had become a cage. It fixes what you keep breaking. I said. He stared like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. That was okay. At noon, we shifted to Meriton Biotech for my launch workshop. A glass conference room. Whiteboard markers lined like soldiers. The rain had stopped, and sun slid across the table like a promise. I plugged in my laptop. The projector whirred to life. Slide 1 process lift plan, 90 days. I felt my hands steady on the table edge. The trunk scene of my life wasn't a trunk. It was a folder. It was a projector. It was finally opening what I'd carried and letting light hit it. Thank you for sticking with me. I told the room, here's what you hired me for. We went deep, mapping flows, killing bottlenecks, rebuilding intake to save 7. 3 hours a week per team. The math clicked. The team nodded. Someone said, this is clear. Clear. My word. Halfway through, a notification slid onto my screen. LinkedIn had removed the cloned page. Another ping domain registrar confirmed a takedown. I didn't smile. I breathed. Between sessions, I checked my phone. A new text. Sophie, I'm done with them. I gave you the chat because it was wrong. If you need me to testify, I will. My thumbs hovered. Thank you. 2 words. And none of the old fear behind them. By late afternoon, the launch was alive. North Bay Tech's ops director stuck his head back in. Got the order. Clean move. He said, we'll add vendor onboarding to your scope. Numbers followed his words like a trailing kite. Another $42. Ling, ling, ling. Measured. Earned. I walked out to the parking lot. The air smelled of wet pavement. A delivery truck rattled past. A tiny rainbow sat on the edge of a puddle like it didn't need anyone's permission to exist. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Aunt Karen, the dining room at my parents' house. The buffet from Easter. The 5 mustard jars lined up. Untouched. Like props. Her caption, we're done pretending. And another from Grandma Rose, her hand holding a check. The memo line said repayment plan. Her message, when people won't make amends, we teach them how. I laughed. Short and bright. Paper never burns. That evening, I stood in my apartment and looked at the door from the photo. The same mat, the same frame, but the feeling was different. The threat had turned into proof. The fear had turned into plan. I opened my notebook and wrote a new line. What I carry now, only what is mine. Then I wrote another. For the comments I knew would come later. The ones I wanted to earn. Did I go too far? Or finally far enough? I closed the notebook. The room felt bigger. Tomorrow, I would send invoices. Confirm scopes. Schedule the first on-site. Tomorrow, I would also decide what to do with my family now that a judge had forced quiet. Consequences had started. But closure wasn't here yet. And part of me, maybe the last naive part, still hoped for one clean conversation across my grandmother's kitchen table. Wednesday. My life felt split in two. On one side, my consulting firm, alive and breathing. Clients locked. Contracts firm. My bank unfrozen. Money moving. On the other, my family, silent but seething, waiting for a crack in the wall I had built. That silence didn't last. At 7:12 a.m. I got a text from Emily. You've humiliated us. You think this is over? Dad's filing his own lawsuit? Claims you stole his intellectual property. Minutes later, Daniel chimed in. You'll run out of cash in legal fees. We've got resources. You've only got stubbornness. And then Mom, sweetheart, please, stop this. We're family. Don't ruin your future with bitterness. The pattern again. Threat. A threat. Guilt. Always in that order. But instead of shaking, I smiled. Because Hale had already warned me. When you corner manipulators, they bluff bigger. That afternoon, I went back to Grandma Rose's house. Same cinnamon scent. Same chain tapping rhythm. She poured tea and said, they'll keep clawing at you. Ethan, they've built their whole identity on you being the one who bends. I showed her the new threats. She sighed. Then it's time you choose. Do you fight forever? Or do you end it with light? Light? I asked. She pushed an old shoebox across the table. Inside were photos Dad at his first company picnic. Mom clutching receipts. Emily with her repossessed SUV. Daniel showing off a drone. Clara dropping her kids at my door. On the back of each photo, Grandma had scribbled notes. Dates. Context. The hidden truth behind their shiny narratives. People forget pictures lie, she said, but captions don't. Friday night. The reckoning came. Not in court, not in secret, but at the community center, where the Rivera family business launch had been rescheduled after the injunction. I went, not to join, but to end it. The room was packed with neighbors, extended family, local press, balloons, banners, all shouting, Rivera Process Group. My siblings preened in their new outfits, and Dad stood at the podium, jaw tight but smiling. Family is legacy, he began. We've built this together. Every child here has a role. He gestured to Emily, to Daniel, to Clara. Applause scattered. Then his eyes slid over me. Standing at the back, he didn't mention my name. Not once. That's when I stepped forward. Correction, I said, loud enough for the microphone to pick me up. Heads turned. Every child didn't have a role. One was told he'd ruin it. Gasps rippled. Emily froze. Daniel muttered under his breath. Clara looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. I walked to the stage and held up my folder. You want legacy. Then let's talk legacy. I laid out the numbers. The $47,000 loan. The 24 months of car payments. The $12 syndicate. The 52 weekends of unpaid childcare. I read their own quotes back to them. Projected on the screen from my laptop. Make it look like we're the original. He'll do it for love. End quote. The crowd shifted from polite smiles to whispers. Someone muttered, that's theft. Another, that's cruel. Dad's face burned red. Stop this performance. This isn't a performance. I said. It's proof. Proof that I've been your silent foundation for 6 years. And when I finally built something for myself, you tried to erase me. The room went still. Even the balloon seemed to sag. Then Grandma Rose's cane tapped once. She stood frail, but her voice carried. He's telling the truth. She said, I saved the records. I watched you drain him. I watched him bleed for all of you while you called it duty. Family doesn't enslave family. Family uplifts. The crowd erupted, some in applause, some in shocked murmurs. But the tide had turned. Emily's composure cracked. You can't do this in public. You did. I cut in. I just answered. By the time I walked out, the Rivera launch was in tatters. Clients had pulled their support. Local press was already asking for comment on the injunction. Neighbors avoided my siblings' eyes. Dad's voice trailed behind me, still trying to spin a story no one wanted anymore. Outside, the air was cool, clean. Grandma found me at the curb, her hand light on my arm. It's over now, she whispered. Is it? I asked. Yes, she said firmly, because you stopped letting them define you. That's the only ending that matters. Back home, I opened my notebook, wrote one final line. I was never the family's mule. I was the engine. And now, I drive my own road. I closed it, turned off my phone, and let silence fill the room. For the first time in years, it wasn't heavy. It was freedom. And to anyone listening, anyone watching this unfold, did I go too far? Or finally, just far enough? Story 2. My brother had an affair with my girlfriend 6 years ago. As I was about to pop the question, some guys just finished first. Too bad the old man never figured that out, he murmured, holding her hand, as he entered the room during our father's burial. I remained mute and watched him lose it throughout the will hearing. Sup. Reddit. My brother snatched the love of my life 6 years ago. They married after betraying me. Since then, my dad has cut him off. Now, my brother and my ex came up to his funeral and attempted to make me seem bad. The will hearing made him lose his grin. He didn't anticipate that this is what happened. I, a masculine 6-year-old, had it all worked out. I work as a structural engineer for a respectable Portland company. Had saved $40,000 for a home. And, most importantly, I was going to pop the question to Allison. We had spent 2 years together. She knew how I enjoyed my coffee, had her own drawer in my dresser, and would come over 3 evenings a week. I was organizing everything and had the ring. After that, Brandon, my brother, decided he wanted what I had. The golden boy is Brandon. A 2-year-old real estate star is making $120,000 by selling tech dudes expensive properties. Everything about the Porsche Cayenne downtown penthouse design, arrives for family dinner and talks about upending markets, and his mother listens intently to everything he says as if he were preaching the gospel of prosperity. Mom was always quite clear about which son was important. Brandon received recognition, pride, and the ability to boast. I attended lectures on putting in effort and reaching my full ability. It was constantly, "That's nice, honey." But Brandon just closed another $1 million listing. Even when I did land good technical work, Allison requested to meet in our coffee shop one Thursday. It seemed as if she was working through a mathematical issue. She informed me that she was in need of someone who could really support her, who had genuine drive, and who knew what success looked like. I take it that this is about Brandon indeed. Golden Boy had been working on her for weeks. It turned out, showing off bank statements, lavish listings, and pricey meals. He had shown her a penthouse with 7 figures, assured her of that way of life. While I was at a conference last weekend, she informed me, straight-faced, that she had previously messed with him. "He's going to pop the question," she remarked icily. "I'm already looking at actual rings." Then the worst part arrived. According to Brandon, you would most likely simply sit there and accept it. Said that you never stand up for anything. Yes, exactly. I got to my feet. Allison, good luck. After that, I left. Billy was the first person I called. When we were 8 years old. Best buddy. A clever-mouthed Puerto Rican boy who ended up becoming the sibling I really desired. Billy and I constructed tree forts and got into mischief while Brandon played golden boy. He had risen through the ranks at his father's construction supply business after high school. Operations, warehouse, and inventory. His father referred to him as his right-hand guy. Had more faith in Billy than in his own boys. I told him everything. Allison's behavior didn't surprise him. But Brandon's transformation into a supervillain infuriated him. Brandon announced their engagement to Allison over a Sunday dinner 3 days later. In the middle of eating, Dad left. That evening, I hung up the phone when Brandon phoned me in his phony, worried tone. Blocked both of them. It was not well received by Dad. I had never seen him so visibly upset with his golden son. Referred to Brandon as a shameful and denied him access to family funds. Totally shut him out. Naturally, Mom blamed me and phoned me in tears, saying that I was destroying the family and becoming nasty out of jealousy. She said I should be old enough to see that Allison made the right decision for her future. Jensen, you're making us all look foolish with this resentment. Conversations are beginning. What people would say at the country club was what she was interested in. Facebook engagement pictures taken 2 months later. The next spring, they celebrated their lavish wedding in Napa. 6 years have passed since then. Brandon treated me like the family charity case. And I pretended not to care for 6 years. And since I hadn't moved on, my mother pretended that I was the troublesome kid. She introduced me as my other son and Brandon as my successful son in real estate throughout 6 years of family gatherings. Billy was the only person who reassured me that I wasn't insane for 6 years. Let's fast forward to Dad's funeral 3 weeks ago. After 2 years of struggle, lung cancer eventually took his life. To tell the truth, I sobbed. I adore the old guy in spite of everything. Even though I've spent half my life feeling like the family's scapegoat. From Seattle, I drove up. You see, I had 2 options. Once the Allison scenario collapsed, either utilize the anger as fuel or stay in Portland and feel sorry for myself. I went with door number 2. I was headhunted by a Seattle company that worked on high-rise projects 6 months after she departed. Not just any buildings, but mixed-use projects, opulent skyscrapers, and the kinds of buildings that alter cityscapes. Overnight. The wage increased from 65. 000 to 95. 000 was enormous. After 2 years, I began doing weekend consultations. First, nothing major. Simply checking smaller companies' structural designs to identify errors that may cost millions of dollars. Word quickly got out. The construction industry in Seattle was booming, and everyone needed skilled engineers who could work quickly without sacrificing quality. A collaboration opportunity with Cascade Engineering Solutions resulted from the consulting engagement. They required a person with knowledge of both project management and structural design. We were bringing in over $300, 000 a year, in contracts by the 4th year. That's when I met Anna. Anna rode shotgun to the funeral, looking like she'd walked out of a magazine in her black Armani outfit. My wife of 3 years, blonde, bright, and from one of those Seattle families where old money truly means something. Met her during a charity auction for Seattle Children's Hospital. She outbid some Amazon exec on a sculpture just to watch him sulk. Then bought me a drink and said, "You look like you have stories." Her father was Richard Blackwood. Blackwood Development and Construction. The city has been developed during the 1940 seconds by old Seattle money, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate empire. I had no idea that dating Anna would open possibilities for me. One of our largest customers was her father's business. 2 years later, at the Olympic Club, we were married. The event was modest, but the list of attendees was a who's who of corporate titans from the Pacific Northwest. Brandon was not invited. Mom wasn't either. Therefore, I wasn't the broke engineer, Brandon recalled, when I drove up to Dad's funeral, in addition to my wife having more contacts than his whole real estate network. I was wearing a tailored suit, driving a Tesla. I arrived at the church early and found a seat at the rear. Billy was there already. He saw someone in a suit 3 rows up, and the nod he received told it all. Screw anybody who tries to turn this into a drama. We're all working together to get through it. For the last 3 years, Billy had been in charge of Dad's daily affairs. Complete operational control had replaced what had begun as warehouse management. Dad had faith in him. Anna gave me a hand squeeze. Recall our conversation. You're not here to interact with relatives, but to respect your father. Then Brandon arrived. He was naturally 20 minutes late, wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit. He strode down the middle aisle as if he were treading the red carpet. His Rolex Submariner was perfectly capturing the light, making your funeral about your attire and holding your deceased father's hand. Allison is the epitome of a grieving son. She had changed appearance. She was still undeniably gorgeous, but now she had a brittle quality, as if she were making too much of an effort to seem joyful. Despite being designer, the dress didn't fit her well. It looks too much like a trophy wife costume from real estate. According to rumors I had heard, their marriage wasn't what she had anticipated. Due to changes in the real estate market, Brandon's income had been gradually declining. It was reported that they were forced to move down from the penthouse to a standard condo. Brandon leaned in close enough for me to hear them as they passed my row on their way to the family area. Some guys just finish first. Too bad the old man never figured that out loud enough that Mrs. Canamist Henderson turned around. Had just disrespected our dead father at his own funeral. I didn't flinch. Just smiled back and said, "You still flipping houses for a living?" His smirk faltered. Brandon's whole identity was wrapped up in being the successful brother. Calling it flipping houses reduced his empire to what it really was. Solace. But the real punch came when Frank Carson walked over and shook my hand. "Jensen, sorry for your loss. Son, your father was proud as hell of what you built in Seattle. Always bragging about his boy who started his own firm. Landed those big construction contracts." Brandon's head snapped around. I could see him processing what he just heard. Structural engineering. Right, Frank continued. Smart move. Joseph said you were pulling in over 400,000 last year, doing design work for those high-rise projects. Anna stood to shake Frank's hand. Frank Carson. I think you know my father. Richard Blackwood. He's mentioned your work on the Harbor District project. Frank's eyes lit up. Blackwood's daughter. Hell. I've known your dad for a very long time. How is he doing? I watched Brandon's face go through phases of bewilderment, calculation, and the realization that perhaps I hadn't been sitting in Seattle, feeling sorry for myself while Anna talked to Frank about her father's construction investments. Billy discovered me by the flowers after the service. When Brandon heard the 7 figures, "Did you see his face?" "Even better," I said when he recognized Anna's connection. "You ought to have witnessed him attempting to use his phone to Google Blackwood construction." Brandon attempted to corner both of us close to the exit. Began talking about the need for someone to take charge of Dad's business and how the family would need to move forward. "There is already someone who has," Billy said coolly. "What is the intended meaning of that?" "That is precisely what I said." Anna showed up with 2 coffee cups at my elbow. She gave Brandon a nod. "Gentlemen, the real estate brother must be you. You've been talked about a lot." It sounded like a medical condition the way she said it. The Monday following the funeral was set aside for the will reading, just the lawyer and family. Someone who had spent the previous 10 years managing Dad's affairs. Our first meeting took place at Dad's house. The Langston family's 3-generational estate, 5 acres outside the town. A large colonial structure. When I got there, Brandon and Allison were seated in the front parlor as if they were the owners. Brandon had changed into what he most likely believed to be formal business wear. Gold-button navy blazer and perfectly creased slacks. The bastard couldn't resist peacocking. Even at a will reading. Billy and Mom were in the kitchen. And Mom was doing what she does when she's anxious, which is to clean things that are already clean while griping about how AA's scheduling of this during her book club week was inappropriate. Billy looked at me as if to say, "This is going to be interesting." When Mom saw me, She forced one of those tight smiles and said, "Jensen, if nothing else, you could have worn a tie. This is an official court case." After that, she noticed Anna, and her face underwent an intriguing set of subtle changes. Anna had on a basic black dress, blonde hair, and flawless diamond earrings that glinted in the sunlight. "You must be Mom, too. Anna Langston," she said, holding out a well-groomed hand. "The wife of Jensen, Mrs. Langston. I sincerely apologize for your loss." Mom's smile went cold. The attorney showed up at exactly 2:00 p.m. He held a manila folder in one hand and a briefcase in the other, indicating that he would prefer auditing tax returns to handling family issues. He sat behind his father's old desk and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, to start, thank you for coming today. Before we start the formal reading, I would like to bring up the fact that Mr. Langston updated his will about a year ago." I noticed Brandon's eyes narrow a little at that, as he had likely been expecting an outdated version in which he would automatically receive the lion's share. After clearing his throat, Akala started reading. Typically, the lawyer speaks first. Then he got to the important part. The lawyer read to my wife, Margaret, along with the contents of our joint checking and savings accounts and complete ownership of the 2019 Mercedes E-Class sedan, I leave $250. 0 inches cash assets. The lawyer went on to my son and Brandon, who leaned forward a little. I leave $50. Ling ling ling. Along with my collection of vintage golf clubs and watches. Brandon's face displayed an intriguing array of subtle facial expressions. Although $50,000 is a nice sum, it is not the family's fortune. The lawyer read, I leave the family home and all real estate holdings valued at about $1 million, along with all contents therein. To my son, Jensen. A pin could have been dropped. Brandon dropped his magazine to the ground. What? Brandon's voice cracked a little as he spoke. That must be incorrect. The attorney didn't even raise his head. Mr. Langston? The document is very clear. Brandon knocked over his glass of water and got to his feet. Like his poise, the ice cubes were strewn all over Mom's Persian rug. This is absurd. Years ago, Dad promised me that house. I intended to build upscale residences on the back acreage. We were planning. The lawyer cut in. Please sit down. Mr. Langston. Brandon chose not to sit. His face was red above his neatly tied tie as he stared at me. What did you do? Jensen. What did you say to him? Did you poison him against me? Nothing. I replied calmly. The lawyer went on down the list, saying, perhaps he simply saw things for what they were. Some of the trust funds, stocks, and accounts belong to me, while others support charitable causes. Over the years, Dad had quietly provided support, minor matters to the extended family. He dropped the nuclear bomb after that. The lawyer added that Billy Lopez, who has been expressly designated as Mr. Langston's selected successor for business operations, is now in charge of the remaining family business assets, which include Langston Construction Supply and its majority 51% stake. The room became silent. I shouldn't have been surprised. But even I was taken by surprise. It was something else to see it officially. Even though Billy had been Dad's right hand for years, Brandon's gaze widened. What, Billy? Are you seriously joking with me? He isn't even related, Billy said softly. Actually, he simply isn't related by blood. But I am his son. You know, now standing. Brandon's voice was growing louder. I'm entitled to that company. The attorney raised his head. Mr. Langston made it clear that he no longer believed either of his sons could run the company effectively. He selected Mr. Lopez because of his proven loyalty, business savvy, and comprehension of the company's principles and operations. Both sons. Brandon whirled around to face me. What did you do? Nothing. Remember how I moved to Seattle? It has been years since I was active in the industry. Billy, however, is employed by me. Now Brandon was going completely crazy. He works for the family business. After all, the heir is me. I am entitled to certain rights. At Langston Construction Supply. Mr. Brandon Langston no longer owns any stock or control. Calmly. The attorney went on. Mr. Lopez has complete operational and voting power. Brandon lost all control at that point. His face turned purple with anger, and he jumped out of his chair so quickly that it fell back. He yelled, "This is bullshit. That vindictive old bastard. He did this to get back at me." Brandon. Mom Syhead. Brandon was now pacing and saying, "No. Screw this. 6 years. After punishing me for 6 years over a girl and Jensen's hurt feelings, he now gives everything to the hired help." Billy got to his feet slowly. "Be mindful of your speech." Or what Brandon's face twisted in rage as he spun around. "I'll be fired." "Oh, hold on. You can't. You don't employ me. I didn't work for you," I said softly. "Brandon, you're just some local punk who got lucky." Billy, however, raised a hand. Billy said, "Let him talk." His eyes were dangerous, but his voice was calm. "I'd like to know his true thoughts." "Do you want to know my opinion?" Now Brandon was utterly insane. "In anticipation of your opportunity to profit, I believe you have been kissing the old man's ass for years. You fooled him, I believe, into thinking you were more reliable than his own sons." Billy moved quickly for a guy wearing a cheap suit. "So I believe you're a parasite." He was in Brandon's face one moment and standing by the mantel the next. "Your dad was the greatest man I've ever met," Billy remarked softly. "He gave me invaluable advice on managing a company, treating others with dignity, and understanding the true meaning of loyalty, and you simply called him a spiteful old jerk at his own volition." Suddenly realizing that Billy was larger than him and had been doing this for 15 years. Brandon took a step back. With less conviction, Brandon added, "He was a bitter old man who couldn't let go of a grudge. After all those years of discussing loyalty and family values, he abandons everything to strangers." Brandon's labored breathing was the only sound in the room. Silently, Billy asked, "Are you done?" Brandon's flawless hair finally mustered as he stared at him, chest heaving. He then appeared to understand what he had just said, how fully he had exposed himself. But he doubled down rather than apologized. "What do you know? I am relieved that he is no longer alive. That was the last straw. But at least I don't have to act like I respect the wretched old—" Mom even covered her mouth and gasped. Billy's expression froze. "Leave." "What now? Leave this house?" "I can't be forced to leave my own family's house," I whispered. "It's not your family home. I own it. And I'm saying the same thing to you. Leave." Anna got to her feet. "In fact, Brandon, I believe Jensen is saying that if you don't leave within 60 seconds, security will escort you out." Brandon frantically glanced around the room as if he was waiting for support. Mom was in tears. The attorney was looking horrified. Allison was observing as though she were researching a particularly fascinating insect. Brandon said, "This isn't over," his voice trembling with anger. "Everyone is aware that this entire situation is. Do you think I'm simply going to abandon the things my father created?" "Yeah," Billy said. "You're going to do precisely that." Anna looked at her watch. 30 seconds. In a flurry of squealing tires and slamming doors, Brandon and Allison departed. Billy took a heavy seat in his father's old chair after they had left. "Jesus," he said. "I knew he was but that was next level." "You okay?" I replied. Billy surveyed the family pictures in the room. The life Dad had created. The furniture he had chosen. "Man, your dad saved my life. That piece of simply called my stepdad a bitter old man. Joseph Langston gave me a job, a purpose, and treated me like family when my mom passed away, and he was drinking himself to death." I said, "Dad knew what he was doing. He made the right choice." "What comes next?" Still wiping at her eyes, Mom asked. Billy and I exchanged glances. Then Billy grinned. The same smile I'd recognized from our childhood. We currently operate a construction supply business, so Brandon shrugged if he wanted to try to take it away from us. It ought to be fascinating. Anna reclined in her seat. Oh, this will be enjoyable. After 2 weeks, Brandon took the initiative. Billy and I were trying to figure out how to manage a construction supply company from 300 miles away 2 weeks after the will reading. Billy had spent the weekend driving down to review the books. Billy dropped the bomb Thursday night while we were seated in my kitchen. Brandon got in touch with me. Anna looked up from her laptop, where she had been studying market trends for construction supplies. Already, time is not wasted by this dude. About a week after the will reading, Billy clarified. It began with texting and progressed to offers of assistance with client relationships and family dynamics. According to Brandon, he had a personal relationship with some of our larger clients through real estate transactions. I was shown the text thread by Billy. By asserting that he had exclusive access to important accounts like Henderson Builders and Carson Construction, Brandon was establishing himself as indispensable. Brandon softened the blow when Billy didn't immediately accept his offer to assist with the transition. To call him a consulting partner is worth $50,000. He increased it to more than 100% of new business, when I didn't bite. Brandon persisted in promoting the idea that smart money can cooperate, stated that during first-generation transitions, family businesses that don't adjust typically fail. Billy had completed his assignments. Brandon had a failing real estate company. Commission income has decreased from $120,000 to less than $50 per year. A 60% decrease from 2 years ago. Legitimacy was more important to him than money. He could reclaim clients if he could assert a partnership in Langston Construction Supply. Desperation masquerading as a business opportunity is the epitome of it. Billy then showed me Brandon's most recent text message. I've been reflecting on our discussion. $100,000 may seem like a lot, but consider the long-term worth. Over the next 2 years, I have 3 significant development deals that could generate over $200. Ling ling ling. Additionally, I may be able to get premium materials through my real estate network. This week, let's get together. Brandon's previous tax returns had been retrieved by Billy's accountant. For years, the man had been living beyond his means, supported by the now collapsing real estate industry. All of Brandon's credit cards were fully charged. He had an underwater mortgage, and to cover the condo fees for the previous month, he had taken out a loan against his car. Billy claimed that he is so desperate to get back in that he will spend a lot of money. What then do we do? Billy smiled while he figured out how to avoid trouble. While we record everything, we let him believe he's being shrewd. We then publicly and permanently shut down the scheme once he is fully committed to it. Anna shut down her computer. Legal documentation is required. Corporate fraud cases are handled by my father's firm. I can arrange for someone to give you a briefing on admissible evidence. 2 days later, Brandon gave Billy a call and said he had clients who were prepared to walk without continuity and family leadership, as well as time-sensitive opportunities. When I told Anna, she said, "Game on." Billy will be guided through the requirements for evidence and recording laws by Dad's attorney. The interesting part is about to begin. Before he picked up Brandon's phone, Billy texted me, "Everything is recorded during showtime." My phone buzzed with Billy's real-time updates while I was in my home office. Now Brandon is pushing hard, wants to meet on Tuesday of next week. He asserts that he has urgent opportunities that cannot wait. He now claims to have had informal conversations with a few of our clients. I'm just checking in on the family's behalf. He just made me an offer of $150, $000 plus a company car. Holy, the man is in a desperate situation. I got a call from Billy an hour later. He's gone completely crazy. For example, Carson Construction said that Frank Carson specifically told him that he was worried about working with new management and would feel more at ease if Brandon was involved. That's Carson loves you. I know, Billy said. I've never heard him sound so frantic. He's saying he has clients ready to walk if there isn't continuity and family leadership during the transition. What clients? However, Brandon is unaware that I am aware of this. I told him that I was curious to learn more about these client concerns, and that I would like to arrange a meeting so that he could give me a detailed explanation of the situation. He enthusiastically accepted, said he could show me documentation of his client relationships, and walk me through his vision for a strategic partnership, and wanted to meet at his office on Tuesday. Anna had been listening from the kitchen. It's a one-party consent state. Right. Yes. Billy paused. Jensen. I believe he's going to try to assert that he already has authority to negotiate on behalf of the business. Or at least that clients believe he does. I can legally record everything. And I've already discussed with Dad's lawyer what the line is between legitimate business discussions and fraud. Basically, it's fraud. If he tries to make promises on behalf of the company without permission or claims to have authority he doesn't actually have. And it's legal if he's just discussing potential opportunities and being clear about his actual role. Billy laughed. You think he's smart enough to stay on the legal side? Have you met your brother? The dude is about to walk into a meeting where he tries to convince me to pay him 6 figures to protect business relationships he doesn't actually have. Smart isn't the word I'd use. Anna showed up with 3 cups of coffee. We're looking at federal crimes with serious jail time, like wire fraud, business identity theft, and racketeering. If Brandon has been representing himself as having authority he doesn't possess. Billy had also done some independent research. Dad's lawyer informed me of the possible charges. His broker had already suspended him pending investigation. 3 former clients had filed formal complaints with the state licensing board. And his reputation in the real estate community was completely destroyed. I realized what Dad had been shielding the company from for all these years. And Tuesday couldn't come soon enough. Brandon's office was all flash and no substance. An hour later, Billy called from his car in the parking garage. Holy, Jensen. Glass walls. To leather furniture that cost more than most cars. And motivational posters screaming luxury and premium. This type of setup was intended to impress clients who didn't look too closely. Billy texted me from the lobby. Going up? Phone recording. This better be good. Brandon had prepared an entire presentation, complete with PowerPoint slides, financial projections, and other materials, and began with his speech about strategic partnerships and family legacy. Your brother recently committed approximately 15 different felonies while I was recording everything he said. After talking about his current clientele and how contractors had voiced concerns about the changeover, he showed me the contracts. What contracts last week? He signed agreements with Henderson Builders, Carson Construction, and Coastal Development that identified Brandon as the family business liaison for Langston Construction Supply and gave him the authority to negotiate prices. However, things got worse. Brandon's scheme was more complex than I had anticipated. He had made professional-of-looking letterhead, business cards, and even a fake employee ID badge. Brandon had been using fictitious contracts to negotiate deals with suppliers, telling Pacific Materials he was handling purchasing for Langston Construction Supply and pocketing bulk discount differences. Pacific Materials had granted him a 15% bulk discount rate reserved for long-term partners, and he had been using that to order supplies, then selling them to small contractors at full markup, and keeping the difference. He had been showing up at supplier meetings as the family representative, overseeing the transition period. He's pocketed almost $8. 0 inches the last month. In this way, the best part is that he's incorporated Langston Premium Construction Supply, using Dad's photo, prominently under a banner that reads, "Continuing a legacy of excellence," on the website and in our marketing materials, telling clients it's our premium division. Billy had recorded everything, including Brandon offering him $200, 000, and a management title to endorse his new business and help transition our clientele. He called it facilitating a strategic merger, but in reality, he asked me to help him dismantle Langston Construction Supply and rebuild it under his control. This jerk is literally stealing Dad's image to build a rival company. Oh, and he wants to use your house as collateral for a business loan. Brandon had reportedly discussed his premium construction supply concept with investors, and when they requested to see assets, he had asked if I would pledge the house as security for a family business investment. However, the investors he had mentioned were not actual investors. They were loan sharks that focused on asset-backed loans for failing companies. And Brandon was so indebted that even respectable lenders wouldn't touch him. I told him I was impressed and needed time to look over everything. And he emailed me all the paperwork, which he did, sending forged contracts, supplier agreements, business plans, investor, pitch decks, and financial projections. Assuming we'd turn over our entire clientele, Billy was back at the warehouse. Having called Dad's lawyer and was arranging a Billy called back after 2 hours of meeting with the DA's office. This past week, Brandon called Carson Construction, Henderson Builders, and Coastal Development, claiming to be a transitional business manager for Langston Construction Supply. Carson told him to back off. Henderson hung up, and Coastal Development was actually considering it because Brandon showed them forged contracts and convinced them he had legitimate authority. How many laws has he broken? I stopped counting at 12. But the prosecutor seemed very interested. He had warned them that there might be service disruptions during ownership change. But he could guarantee continuity if they signed new agreements with Langston Premium Construction Supply, described as the upgraded division of our operation. When I got home, Anna was looking up federal fraud statutes. And your brother is looking at a minimum sentence of 5 to 10 years. Identity theft is a felony in and of itself. But business fraud with forged documents is exactly what the feds like to prosecute. The prosecutor Billy met with was an expert in white-collar crime, and she had seen cases similar to this one before, desperate business owners attempting to take advantage of family ties to commit fraud. What was especially heinous about Brandon's case was the extent of the deception and his readiness to exploit his deceased father's reputation and image. I drove up Thursday night and met Billy at the warehouse, where we spent the morning discussing the plan with Acola and the prosecutor. 3 days later, Brandon fell into his own trap. The last meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Billy had persuaded Brandon that he was prepared to proceed with the partnership, but wanted to go over the last details and schedule. The prosecutor explained, he's already committed multiple felonies. At this point, he could confess and we'd still convict. But if he doubles down, he'll dig his own grave. Let Brandon explain his entire scheme on camera. Get him to confirm the forged documents, and then let the law handle the rest. Billy concluded. At 200 p.m., Billy entered Brandon's office wearing a wire and carrying documents that would permanently ruin my brother's career. It was just professional courtesy, Anna explained, adding that she had flown up that morning with Richard Blackwood's corporate attorney, one of the top white-collar crime lawyers on the West Coast. I listened to the live audio feed while waiting in Dad's lawyer's office with Anna and her father's lawyer. Brandon's voice sounded confident and excited, ready to earn real money. Billy played along, stating that he had read everything and was impressed. And he began his presentation about strategic partnerships in order to gauge the situation during the transition. He had been having casual conversations with clients. He showed Billy the forged contracts, all of which identified Brandon as Langston Construction Supply's authorized representative. I told them that I was taking care of the transitional period while you got up to speed. Brandon stated on the recording, Billy persisted in insisting that I have family authority and that you don't actually have the authority to represent Langston Construction Supply. When he inquired about the bulk purchasing agreements, Brandon had negotiated under our company name and referred to them as preliminary arrangements for when they fully launched the premium operation using forged authorization documents. Forged is a strong word, and I prefer provisional. When Billy brought up the legal ramifications, Brandon waved them away. The lawyer was taking notes and shaking his head. This idiot is confessing to everything on tape. Brandon described his business plan, saying he had founded Langston Premium Construction Supply to uphold the family legacy while appropriately positioning in the luxury market. This is a family business. You believe that Joseph Langston built his company by worrying about every little legal detail? Well, he was obsessed with doing things correctly. And look where that got him dead at 68. Billy's voice went silent at that point. Excuse me, Brandon went on to say that Billy was excellent at operations but had no idea how to develop a business. You're doing us a favor. I'm trying to save the family legacy and make us all rich by stealing our clients and setting up a competing business. Jensen was good at engineering but didn't understand the business side of construction. Without someone who understood both industries, the business would fail. I'll build this business myself. And when Langston Construction Supply goes under, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. Brandon called Billy Joseph Langston's charity case and an employee with a fancy title. That's a conspiracy to commit business fraud. The lawyer looked up from his notes. Federal prosecutors love that charge. 20 minutes later, Billy texted me. It's happening. He was talking to another potential victim when the police entered his office. And Billy watched through the glass wall as Brandon Langston, the lead detective, flashed his badge and said, "What's this about wire fraud? Business identity theft. Conspiracy." When they put him in handcuffs, he went completely crazy and began yelling about family businesses and miscommunications. "This is Billy. Tell them we had a deal." "What deal?" Brandon's voice cracked like a 13-year-old. "You piece of... This is my family's business." "Not anymore." Billy just stood there, arms crossed. Police discovered boxes of forged documents, stolen client lists, and a business plan detailing his plan to acquire our customer base through transitional negotiations. As they dragged Brandon out, he screamed loud enough for the entire building to hear, "You will regret this. I will make you pay. This isn't over." Billy called after him, "Good luck with that." Allison must be having a great day, because Brandon was charged with 12 felonies, and his lawyer recommended an immediate plea deal. The icing on the cake was that Brandon's assistant quit on the spot and asked Billy if we were hiring. Anna was browsing through her phone when the news of Brandon's arrest broke. His mugshot is already online. Word spreads quickly. And 2 weeks later, Allison filed for divorce. Brandon entered a guilty plea to 8 counts, was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, 3 years of probation, and a permanent ban from construction and real estate in Oregon and Washington. His business was dissolved. His assets were seized for restitution, and his reputation was ruined. We kept every client Brandon attempted to steal. Richard Blackwood had been watching the construction supply market for years, waiting for the right opportunity, and everyone knew what he'd tried and how we'd handled it. Businesses came to us because they were impressed by our integrity, and Anna's father ended up investing in our expansion. He told me over dinner that a company with that kind of moral leadership is worth supporting. Under Billy's direction, Langston Construction Supply had its best year ever, growing into 3 new markets, gaining 12 significant new clients, and increasing revenue by 67% from $1.8 million to just over $3 million a year. Billy took over Dad's old office and hung a picture of the elderly man behind his desk. The company that Brandon believed he could gut and rebuild became more successful than it had ever been under Dad's management. The house Dad left me became my weekend retreat. And Anna's father's company became one of our biggest clients, creating a perfect synergy between design and supply that gave us a major competitive advantage. Anna loved the old place, said it had good bones, and helped me restore it to its original grandeur. I spent most Saturdays there, and Billy would stop by for dinner and to discuss business. Brandon, who, as of the last time I heard, was living in a trailer park, driving a 20-year-old pickup truck, and working at a lumber yard in Ohio. Some guys just finish last, and some guys get exactly what they deserve. His parole officer refused to let him leave the state. His divorce from Allison had been harsh. She had taken what little he had left after the assets were seized, claiming financial fraud and emotional distress. From a Porsche Cayenne to a pickup truck rust bucket. That's what we call a career pivot. Mom still calls me frequently, but not to see how I'm doing, but to guilt trip me about Brandon. She sighed as if I were being dramatic, and she began telling people at church that I turned my own brother into the police because of a family argument, painting me as the bad guy in her story. When I told her that Brandon would have to apologize to Billy first, she sneered. "You're really going to choose some outsider over your own blood? Billy's not even family." Jensen. He's just an employee who got lucky. The last time she called, she had the gall to suggest that I write a letter to the judge requesting leniency because families should stick together. Since then, I haven't returned her calls. Billy and I now manage a multi-million-dollar company. And whenever we sign a new contract, hire a new employee, or see our father's name on our business cards. We recall the lessons he taught us about doing things correctly. Sometimes the good guys do.